My name is Caroline, and I never thought I'd be the office villain. I always saw myself as the good one, the reliable one, until I wasn't. It started innocently enough, late nights at the office with my boss Mark. We were working on this massive project that could change both our careers. The long hours, the pressure, the way he actually listened when I spoke, something my husband hadn't done in years. I knew it was wrong when his hand first touched mine across the conference table, but I didn't pull away. I should have, but I didn't. That touch led to drinks. Drinks led to dinners, and soon we were meeting in hotels during lunch breaks. The guilt was there, buried under layers of excitement and validation I hadn't felt in years. My marriage had been dead for longer than I cared to admit. David and I were roommates at best, strangers at worst. We slept with a wall of pillows between us, and conversations were limited to grocery lists and bill payments. I know that's not an excuse. There's never a good excuse for cheating. But in my head, I justified it. I'd convinced myself that I deserved this small happiness. Then there was Jenny. New to the company, a single mom with a 6-year-old son, she was quiet, kept to herself, but she was observant. Too observant. I didn't know she had seen me getting into Mark's car one evening. I didn't know she had noticed our lingering glances across the office. I didn't know she had been collecting evidence. Until the day everything fell apart. I was in the middle of a team meeting when my phone started buzzing uncontrollably, text after text from friends, family members, even distant acquaintances. Then an email notification from Jenny to the entire office. Subject line, "The truth about Caroline and Mark." My stomach dropped as I opened it. There were screenshots of our text messages, photos she had taken of us entering a hotel together, even a recording of us in the parking garage. She had sent it to everyone, including my husband. The conference room fell silent, 20 pairs of eyes staring at me. Mark's face went pale. I grabbed my things and ran out, but the damage was already done. When I got home, David was sitting at the kitchen table, my phone messages open on his laptop. He didn't yell, he didn't cry. He just looked at me with empty eyes and asked, why? I had no answer that would make any of this okay. That night, he packed a bag and left. Just like that, my marriage was over. The next morning, I couldn't bring myself to go to work. I called in sick, then did the same the next day and the next. When I finally returned, the whispers followed me everywhere. People who used to smile at me in the hallway now avoided eye contact. The shame was suffocating. Jenny, meanwhile, acted like nothing had happened. She sat at her desk, answered calls, went about her day, while my life was in ruins. Mark had been transferred to another branch. My marriage was over, my reputation was destroyed, and she just sat there, seemingly proud of what she'd done. Something in me snapped. If she wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. I went to HR with a folder of my own. For weeks after the exposure, I had been documenting everything. The times Jenny was late to work, the personal calls she took during business hours, the client files she had accessed without authorization. Small offenses, but they added up. I painted a picture of an employee who was not only unprofessional, but potentially a liability to the company. I didn't lie. I didn't have to. I just made sure that every minor infraction was noted and reported. I knew the company had been looking to downsize, and I made sure Jenny was an easy target. 2 weeks later, she was called into an HR meeting. An hour after that, she was escorted out of the building, carrying a box with her personal belongings. I felt a momentary satisfaction watching her leave. She had destroyed my life, and now she was facing consequences of her own. It felt like justice. Until I overheard a conversation in the break room. 2 coworkers discussing how Jenny was struggling to find new employment, how she was behind on rent, how her son might have to change schools if they had to move to a cheaper neighborhood. She's even picking up night shifts at a gas station, one of them said. Can you imagine? With a 6-year-old at home? The satisfaction I had felt turned to ash in my mouth. What had I done? Yes, Jenny had exposed my affair, but wasn't that just revealing the truth? A truth I had been hiding? And in response, I had taken away her livelihood, potentially destabilized her child's life. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her face as she left the office for the last time. The fear in her eyes, the uncertainty. I tried to tell myself she deserved it, that she had ruined my life first, but the justification felt hollow. The next day, a former coworker texted me, "Just saw Jenny at the food bank, thought you should know." That was the moment I realized I had crossed a line. I had become something I never thought I would be, someone who hurts others to ease my own pain, someone who punishes truth-telling because the truth is inconvenient. I found myself driving to the gas station where she now worked. It was almost midnight when I pulled in. She was behind the counter looking exhausted. When she saw me, her eyes hardened. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice flat. "I want to apologize," I said. "What I did was wrong." She laughed, a bitter sound. "Which part? The affair or getting me fired?" "Both," I admitted. "I was wrong, and I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't pay my bills," she said. "Sorry doesn't feed my son." I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope. Inside was 3 months' worth of rent money. "This isn't a bribe or hush money," I said. It's what I can do right now to try to make things right." She stared at the envelope, but didn't take it. "I don't want your money." "Then let me help you find another job. I have connections. I can write you a recommendation." "You think I'd trust you to recommend me? After what you did?" She was right. Why would she trust me? I had proven myself untrustworthy in every possible way. "I exposed your affair because what you were doing was wrong," she said quietly. "I shouldn't have sent it to everyone. I should have just talked to you. That was my mistake. But you deliberately set out to destroy my life. How do you live with yourself?" I didn't have an answer. How did I live with myself? I barely recognized the person I had become. As I drove home that night, her question echoed in my mind. The truth was, I didn't know how to live with myself anymore. I had betrayed my husband, betrayed my own values, and then punished someone for exposing that betrayal. The next day, I wrote a letter to my company's HR department, confessing what I had done. I admitted that I had targeted Jenny unfairly, that I had manipulated the system to get her fired. I didn't know if it would help her get her job back, but it was the truth, and maybe the truth was where I needed to start. I also left the envelope of money with her son's daycare with a note explaining it was to cover his fees for the next few months. It wasn't enough to fix what I had broken, but it was something. David and I are in counseling now. I don't know if our marriage can be saved, but we're trying. Mark was demoted and transferred to another branch. My reputation at work is still in tatters, but I'm trying to rebuild it one honest interaction at a time. As for Jenny, I heard she found a new job better than the one she had before. I'm glad for her. I hope one day she can forgive me, but I wouldn't blame her if she never did. So, am I the a-hole? Yes, I think I am. I betrayed my husband, and when someone called me out on it, I tried to destroy her life. I'm trying to be better now, but I can't undo the harm I've caused. All I can do is own up to it and try to make amends. Some might say Jenny crossed a line by exposing my affair so publicly. Maybe she did, but my response was disproportionate and cruel. I used my power and privilege to punish someone who was already vulnerable. That makes me the villain in this story, whether I wanted to be or not. The hardest lesson I've learned is that sometimes, when someone holds up a mirror and shows you an ugly truth about yourself, the right response isn't to break the mirror. It's to take a hard look at your reflection and work on changing what you see.